Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Detroit Sports Sit Down. We are continuing our interview series, and today we have a very special guest. We have Mark Wilson, big-time radio and television personality in Detroit. As a matter of fact, sportscaster of the year, I think, more than a few times. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to take a trip down memory lane when Detroit sports were not only happening, but were actually really good. So I'm really excited to welcome Mark Wilson to the Detroit Sports Sit Down. Mark, how's it going out there in Vegas today?
Hi, Tom. It's going great. It's a beautiful day. It's 80 degrees. The sun is out. It's dry. It's spectacular, unlike what you might be going through. But other than all that's going on in the world right now, I mean, if it was just about weather, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, you're not kidding about that. Some strange times we're living in today with the coronavirus pandemic, the lockdown pretty much situation that we have going on. I know it's been hard for me, like, because I like to go to work and then come home and watch my sports, talk about sports, do sports podcasts, talk to my friends about what's going on in sports. And so it's been a real tough time for me. You can only watch so many old Pistons and Wings games, to get you through your lack of live sports. So for you, how has it been for you? Because I know you're still a huge sports fan yourself. So how's it going out there in Vegas with no live sports?
Look, it's about keeping people safe. We don't know what's happening. We get the information from wherever you get it from. You pick and choose. You try to be calm. You try to take it day by day. I've already said I don't even. Is this Tuesday?
Yeah, I think so.
Just count them by numbers, so it's 21. I know it's 21. Tomorrow will be 22. And you really do have to do the work. Every person, when this started happening, when this shutdown went mid-March, you have to do the work on yourself. You need to help other people. For example, we started doing the Zoom family thing. We got family all over the country, and that's been a big help. We do that at least once a week, sometimes twice. And if you do the work, and you stay healthy, and you're well, and you just care about others, we can push through. I know it's kind of cliche, but we can push through it. And without really knowing what the back end on any of this is, whether sports comes back, whatever the deal is, the first and foremost thing is making sure people are taken care of and healthy. For example, my nephew was diagnosed. He went through a very tough time, but he's a 20-year-old healthy athlete who goes to Vanderbilt University, and so it was still very tough on him. So there aren't people as lucky as he is to be that kind of, that physique and 4% body fat and whatnot. We could do the whole show on this, but
yeah.
Just suffice it to say, you gotta do the work in your own mental health in your head to just kind of push through every 24 hours.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. As far as your sports fix, what have you been watching? Are you getting into these, watching the old broadcasts of games, the Jordan series? I was fascinated by that, and that's going to keep going. I think there was a lot of hype around that. So, did you watch that? Are you excited about that? The NFL draft is coming up, but there's only so much we got to look forward to, as big time sports fans.
To answer your question about the old, I'm not a big fan of old-timey. Even though sometimes, like on my social media, you see on Facebook or Twitter, I do put a lot of, I go back to my Fox 2 career in Detroit, and I've got a few pieces I've saved over the years, and I'll do some screen grabs. Just because I know other people like it, it's not just about me. So I'll do that, but musically and whatnot, I'm very into today and new time, and I'm not a big old-timey guy. So have I been watching? You know what I do? Tom, I'll be honest with you. In the current situation where I'm here in Vegas, a lot of times I'll get up and I will just turn on some background, and I usually go to MLB Network. I go right to MLB, and I've always got, today I think I saw the Jake Arrieta's no-hitter, and it's just background for me, though. I don't sit there. I don't like to watch a lot of television during the day. It's usually at night, just only stuff I DVR'd. So I do that in the background, but I'm not spending a lot of time watching TV. I'm trying to at least be somewhat productive. And as far as what was the other? What did you ask me about? Jordan.
The Jordan documentary, yeah.
Honest with you, all right, we're 2 episodes into the Jordan series, right? Or the Last Dance. It's not just Jordan Bulls thing.
Yeah.
I lived it. So far, I haven't seen anything I didn't know. And the only thing I got angry at Michael Jordan about was in the first episode, he blows off the baseball career with, when I took my 18-month vacation.
Yeah.
Okay? He said he used the words vacation and hiatus. And I'm screaming at the screen saying, Mike, I spent 2 springs around Sarasota, Florida, having to watch you try to hit a curveball. Mr. I call him 202 because that was his batting average in Double-A.
Yeah.
I've reduced Michael Jordan to 202. Kind of like Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, Mr. 305. Michael Jordan to me is Mr. 202. So I've reduced his entire sporting career to that 1 year in Double-A because I went down to that. I covered that a lot, and I'm hoping in future episodes they bring up the leaving the NBA after the first 3 championships, going to play baseball, and then coming back. And then after he came back, he has almost never mentioned baseball again, right?
Yeah.
He talks about baseball, but he spent 2 springs, 1 full year playing for Terry Francona and the Birmingham Barons, the White Sox Double-A. I was there for a lot of it, so you can't fool me, Mikey. I mean, I saw it, to just diminish it with my vacation. He walked away from the NBA for a lot of reasons, a lot of rumors that he's never really. I'm praying. This would be great if he finally addresses the rumors and comes clean as to why he had to walk away from the league after the first 3 titles. That'll be interesting in future episodes.
And those rumors, they do swirl. They swirl for years. It was the gambling, and then he was basically suspended from the NBA for 2 years, but the NBA didn't want to tarnish the image, of themselves, and Jordan, because Jordan pretty much was the league pretty much back then. And you had your other stars, but what do you think about that?
I've always said and contended, and I've asked him myself, I've thrown myself out there, he's never happy to hear about, those rumors. He always squashes them. So there's never any confirmation. You can only go by what he says. There's nobody else that has either kept their mouth shut or something's happened that haven't heard anything. David Stern now will never know really what the former commissioner, had to say about all this back in the mid-90s. It was obvious that he didn't just one day say, what would be fun?
Yeah.
Just to leave what I'm doing and go play baseball in the minor league system. Nobody does that.
Yeah, right in his prime anyway.
What's that?
It was right in his prime too, those are just like prime years that he had, it's he's not
just going to get up. That if he had been there, they might have beaten Houston or something. The Rockets wouldn't have won those 2. They might have won 8 straight championships, or who knows?
Yeah.
Arguable that they would have done that. He came back late and remember, he left baseball only because supposedly he wasn't going to be a replacement player. And he had the big argument with the general manager, Ron Schuler, at the time. I was there. I was in Sarasota when he left. And he had the 2-word statement when he returned. He said, I'm back. And remember, his baseball owner is the same as his basketball owner, Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah.
So that made it easy for Jordan to just say, I'm not going to be a scab. I'm not going to play replacement ball. I'm going to go back to basketball. And once he got back in a Bulls uniform, and that night he scored 19 against Indiana in overtime, and it was over. And it was on in basketball, over in baseball. He never brought up baseball again. And he just wanted to let that go because he knows there were other things involved that forced his supposed vacation and hiatus. But again, I want to see how they address it, if they address it at all in future episodes, because in the first one, he only used those 2 words, that it was an 18-month vacation hiatus. And I said, okay, I had to go sit there and watch you try to hit a curveball, which you could not do, buddy.
That's the thing about these rumors and that, though. It's like what if the punishment was you just have to step away so we don't have to suspend you? Like what did that solve at all?
Well, I mean, that's again, there's a lot of layers to the onion, Tom. I mean,
Yeah.
And Jordan did not want to sully any reputation, so he did whatever he could do to make sure that reputation stayed intact. He also did it, I'm sure, because he waited for a return to the league. I think that was planned all along. He was never going to be a big baseball star and go on to have a 20-year career in the majors. So he used it as a way to he even used his dad. He said his dad always wanted him to play baseball. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, really. So, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but without confirmation on any of the gambling things or what might have been around it, some of the numbers are staggering as to how much money he owed. But again, without him coming clean, so we'll see. This is supposed to be this last dance was supposed to be his coming out party when he can admit some things. He already admitted in the first episode, I believe, that when he got to the Bulls, there were guys that were smoked up and doing coke and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Michael came up and said, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do any of that. And they, cleaned up their act around him. So, he didn't mention names, but he did come out and say that. And again, back in the early 80s, we kind of knew the Bulls. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. I covered the Bulls a lot in the 70s and before I went to college. And, there was the Bulls were never great. They had some good years. It wasn't until Jordan got there that obviously he made Chicago a basketball entity in the old Chicago Stadium, then the United Center. But he admitted that in the first one. So he gave you a little taste of something there. But so far, through 2 episodes, there's nothing I didn't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's fascinating stuff. But I do want to get back to your start. And you, because you graduated from Michigan State in the early 80s, and then, but you were telling me you had started in the sports media business even before then. Can you talk to us about how you got your start in sports journalism?
I read my career.
Yeah.
When my dad was in advertising. I started playing sports when I was 2. I mean, I played everything. I wanted to be my dream job was to be replace Ron Santos, the third baseman of the Chicago Cubs. That was my dream. And I tried, I kept playing baseball. That's why I went to Michigan State. I went there. I wanted to play baseball at Michigan State. But in high school, I started doing stuff because there was an opening for me. I also worked at the school paper at the time. And I just put out requests to go to cover games. I got Mike McClure was nice enough with the Bulls to give me a press pass when I was 15. And I took my little tape recorder down there. I almost got kicked out of a locker room by Bill Russell, when he was coach of the Seattle Supersonics. So I have these little stories that I can go on and on about, but I started doing that, and then I went to Channel 5, WMAQ-TV in Chicago. One of my heroes, Johnny Morris, who is, if you can believe this, to this day, still the Chicago Bears' all-time leading receiver in yardage. The guy retired at 67. People don't know this, but Johnny Morris remained, he's all, to this, they haven't found a receiver to get more than 5,800 yards. But that's I know, I'm going off the trail here, but
yeah, that's crazy.
Morris, I went 5 and wanted to interview him for the school paper. I stuck around as I asked, can I be a high school intern? They didn't even have that back then. And they didn't care, so I just kept showing up and doing stuff, and so I kind of fell for the TV business. And then when I got to college, I just started doing stuff while I was in school, radio and television. I disc jockeyed as well, it wasn't just sports. I did that, and by the time I left school, I was already working in Lansing. I had already started in Lansing doing radio and TV, and in 1980, while I was still in college, the dean of Mid-Michigan Sports, Tim Stout, was kind enough to take me with him from Channel 6 to Channel 10, WILX-TV. Fred Human, who, of course, was in Detroit many, many years. We both went with Tim to Channel 10. And that really got me cooking. Tim kind of got me going. And then less than 2 years, when I graduated in 82, I got this great job in Miami. I wanted to do play-by-play until I realized how much it paid.
Yeah.
I don't mean at the big level. I mean, I wanted to do hockey.
Yeah.
I did some hockey. I did Michigan State hockey while I was in college. And after my fine baseball career was over, early. But I did the hockey play-by-play, so I actually had 2 jobs at the time. This was critical in my career. I had a chance to go do minor league hockey in Grand Rapids or take a TV job in Miami. I got this. I couldn't believe I sent a tape, and I got an interview. They flew me down. And when I heard what the pay was, I decided I think I can hang with you people on TV.
Yeah.
So I really went for the money, and I did that. That's when I went to Miami, Florida, and worked at the great WTVJ. It used to be CBS 4, now it's NBC 6. So that's how it got started. So the starting my roots, if you're asking, was high school, doing work in college, and getting paid. At one point, I had 5 jobs that I was doing. I was even disc jockeying and doing production at a station, WVIC in Lansing. And then just morphed over to television because, Tom, will be honest, I mean, the money was just incredibly different.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of money. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah. Yeah, sure am. But so
listening, all your listeners are a big fan of money. I don't think anybody's going to say they're not.
yeah, nobody's gonna fault you for following the money, man. There's no doubt about that.
I got to go for the money. Must be the money there, Dion said. It must be the money.
But then so from Miami, how did you get back to Detroit?
Well, there was a lot of things that happened. You don't need to know how the sausage is made. I spent a better part of 4 years in South Florida. I loved it in Miami doing television. It was a great job. It was fantastic. That was before they even had they only had really the Dolphins and the Hurricanes because the Marlins weren't there yet, the Heat wasn't there yet, and the Panthers weren't there yet. But there was a lot of great one of them, the Orange Bowl, and it was a great time there. I went back to Michigan. There was a couple of reasons, some personal ones. I went back to Michigan. I thought I was going to work at Channel 4. I ended up going back to Lansing for a little while, and then I actually got another job in Lansing, being a sports director at the ABC affiliate, before I finally settled in at Channel 2 at Fox 2. It wasn't even Fox 2 at the time. It was just Channel 2, WJVK, in the late 80s, early 90s. And I stayed at Channel throughout the 90s for the most part. I stayed was sports director at Fox 2 for a number of years.
Wow.
During that time, though, as I mentioned, I worked at ESPN. I started with ESPN from inception, almost from inception, because the first Sports Center was September of '79, and by the time we hit the end of that year into 1980, you got to remember back when ESPN started, they didn't have reporters. They only had the Sports Center anchors. They didn't have any reporters. So they relied on some of us in other markets to supply them with content because they had nothing. There wasn't all these cable networks. There wasn't all the TV. There wasn't games on TV all the time. Back in 97 and 80, you had a game of the week in baseball. That was it, Saturday. There wasn't games all over the place, and it was hard to get them. So they relied on some of us around the country, and I became one of those guys that always gave them content. And people used to say, why do they want all that Michigan content, though? Why do they want Michigan State or Michigan or the Tigers? I said, because what do you forget? They're always playing somebody. So I can go do features on whoever's coming into town. For example, like ESPN would call and say, you going to the Tiger game today? They're playing the Yankees. And I would go specifically just to get Don Mattingly or Dave Winfield or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not just the Detroit stuff, although they took plenty of it. They also wanted the teams that they were playing, those Detroit teams, or the Michigan State, whoever they were playing, or Michigan, whatever they were playing in Ann Arbor. And also I did a lot of racing. I spent a lot of my life at the Michigan International Speedway. I was a big race fan, NASCAR and IndyCar. Back then, IndyCar had 3 races at the Speedway. NASCAR had 2. We had the IROC races. Speedway was a big-time thing back in the late 70s, early 80s, and all the way through the 80s. Not that it is even today, but IndyCar hasn't run there now in a number of years. So I did a lot of racing for ESPN over the course of time. This was year after year. This was day in and day out, man. They didn't really get to the ESPN status today till about the mid to late 80s. They finally got reporters, Greg Wyatt and Andrea Kramer and Gail Gardner. They were like the first 3 big reporters they had. So they relied on us for a long time. So and let me tell you something, Tom. Every day I go to the mailbox, guess what was in there?
A press credential?
A check.
A check.
No, a check.
There you go.
There was checks. I still have some of my stubs, my ESPN check stubs, just to show people because they don't do that anymore. They're long out of that business. But back then, it was like you go to, and that wasn't just me. There was other guys. Freddie Human did it as well. He did a lot of ESPN stuff, and even CNN and other offshoots. They needed content, and we provided it for them. So that was a big part of my career too, early on, and even into all the way into the early 2000s too.
Wow.
some of it, but that was a big deal to be able to still work local and do the national stuff at the same time.
Yeah. So, when you got to go, like, especially at like, you know, kind of being fresh out of school, but like you said, you like ESPN wanted you to go cover the Yankees. Can you talk about some of those earlier times when you got to talk to, you know, guys that were, you know, at the time, like, larger than life, you know, these sports superstars, and how did you handle that?
You know what? I gotta be honest, I started doing it so young. I started covering, when I did the Bulls and Blackhawks, and I'd go into locker rooms at 15 or 16, I got over it real quick. And back in those days, I made my money I would do the interviews because those stations in Chicago, even in Chicago, big market, didn't staff all those games. So I would go do the interviews and take my cassette tape to like a couple of the radio stations in Chicago, and they gave me like $25 for the tape. So that's how I made my money with that, you know, as far as being a professional. The only difference between professional and amateur is you make money as a pro. I just got used to it. I got used to seeing those kind of big names coming into town. It just kind of didn't faze me. So by the time I was ready to go out there and be a regular guy and have a job and in the TV business, I mean, I was just telling someone earlier today about I had a flare-up with Bobby Knight early on, like back in 1980 and 81. And, I mean, we almost went toe-to-toe, and I actually said to him, I said, hit me right here. I make my career. I did it a lot more fiery than I just did it with you.
Yeah.
But everybody goes through that stuff, but I just got used to it. It didn't faze me. It didn't faze me to talk to Bobby Knight or to talk to, I talked to the biggest names in sports. I mean, there was probably anybody I didn't. So, I think you get over that really quick. It becomes your job, and you have to do your job, and you're on a deadline. You got to fulfill those deadlines. If you're on the air at 6 o'clock, it doesn't mean 6:03, baby. If you're on at 6, you're on. Hey, like you wanted me on your podcast, you called me at the prescribed time. Do you think it would have flown if you called me a half an hour late?
Yeah, no, I'd probably not.
No, you told me a specific time. You kept to that deadline. That's the time. Someone tells me to be on at this time, I know I have to be on at that time. It's not going to be 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
What is it Tom Coughlin or the old line, if you're 5 minutes early, you're already late?
Yeah.
You're already late if you're 5 minutes early. So, yes, all those, times talking to the biggest names in sports, it's never bugged me.
Are there some that stick out? Like, there's one I think if you scroll down your Facebook right now, in a few, there's a picture of you with a mic in Magic Johnson's face, man. Like, like a guy like that, man. He's just, like, he carries such an aura around him. Are there some guys for you that just really stick out, or maybe just like specific interviews that happened that you really remember because not only they were such legendary sports figures, but maybe specific things that they said?
That's a good question. No, that's a legit good question. Now, as far as Magic goes, I went to college with Irvin. So I had a connection. We actually had classes together.
Wow, okay.
We're the same age. In fact, Magic is, 2 weeks older than I am.
Yeah.
He was born August 14th. I was 2 weeks later. So I've known Irvin a long time, since 1977. So that didn't, he doesn't faze me. But you asked a good question. The one guy that I always had to spend time with at a golf tournament when I was covering the seniors, because he was a pro. I mean, he was on the PGA Tour, but I didn't see him as much as I saw on the senior tour. It was Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus that was kind of daunting to me. Every time I got to talk to Jack and got like one-on-one time with Nicklaus, that always kind of moved me. You know what I mean? And Jack knew after a while, he knew that I wanted my one-on-one. I would wait because I didn't want to be in a pack. So I would wait for Jack to do one-on-one. And then after a while, he'd go, I know, you have to have your Jack. He would say it to me. But I thought that was funny that he recognized it and whatnot. But Nicklaus is one of them. I always tell this
no. What's this?
Tom, I mean, I don't tell it often. I don't know what. I wish I had the tape. Back in the day, you couldn't save everything. I wish I could save so much more. All those tapes were hard to save because they were expensive and you needed to reuse them. I got to interview a horse.
A horse?
Mm-hmm. Not just any horse, though.
So what, Secretariat or something?
Secretariat.
No way.
Yeah, and when I say interview, obviously, I mean, I put the mic up as a joke to see if you would neigh for me or something.
Yeah.
But, it took me like years to get the meeting in Kentucky to go and do a story on Secretariat. Secretariat passed it in 89, I did it in 85 or 86. But that was another time when if I go back in my career and someone asks me what's like the craziest, the person you met, I said, not a person, except Jack, maybe, but it's a horse.
That's so funny, Mark. My other thing was going to say the computer that won the chess game against who's that chess player that lost to the computer or whatever. So I was going to, if it's a non-person, I was either going to be Secretariat or that computer that won a chess game. But, so,
no computers.
That's crazy, though, a Secretariat.
I'm a huge horse fan. I'm a huge horse race fan. I love the Triple Crown Series. When I was in Miami, I went to Gulfstream and Hialeah and Calder, all the racetracks. I used to love covering the ponies, covering the races. Even in Detroit, I would go to Hazel Park. I wasn't a big trotter fan of the harness stuff, but I liked it enough. But I'm a big thoroughbred race fan. I mean, I follow. We're 2 weeks away, a week away from what would be the Derby.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed that we're not going to see. Victor Martinez has a horse that was going to run probably in the Derby.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that, and we'll see what happens later in the year if we get a chance to see the Derby at that time. But I study it. I watch the Florida Derby. I watch the Wood Memorial. I watch all that stuff as prelude to the Derby and the Preakness and the Belmont. So I'm a big horse fan. So that was a big deal for me to go and actually just in person see Secretariat. And I'm telling you, it was everything you dreamed it would be, man.
Wow.
What a horse! What an animal! What a just a little stallion! Just unbelievable.
Well, with that horse too, there's an argument. That horse is the greatest athlete in sports history. It depends on how you feel about sports racing, but
no, there's no argument. The greatest athletes in sports history are probably Muhammad Ali and Secretariat.
Wow. Detroit was big in boxing too. Was that ever in your wheelhouse? You got any good Tommy Hearns stories or?
When I worked in Miami, I would go to the Fifth Street Gym, and Angelo Dundee, who was the great trainer who trained Ali, was one of my best friends down there at the time. And Manuel Stewart in Detroit from Kronk.
Yeah.
Because I got to know Hearns and all those guys during that time, but I got to know Ali pretty well because Ali, when I was there, he had just finished the last fight with Trevor Berbick, and there was talk that didn't get out in the media because remember back then, no computer, no social media, no internet, didn't get out as much. Only a newspaper guy or a TV guy would be able to get the story. But I was right there when he was talking about coming out of retirement, right around 40. This is right before he got diagnosed with the Parkinson's. And I was thrilled to get to know Ali a little bit, because again, it was just fresh off of the career basically being over. We didn't know that at that time that it was over, because I do think he wanted to still fight, even though he lost two of his last three. I can't remember what it was. I have to look it up. But it was great getting to know Ali. He was great. It was so yes. I was big on the boxing thing too. And as I went through and again got to Detroit and got to meet Emmanuel and then Jackie Callan over at the Galaxy Gym. She had James Toney. That was a good year. That era, like in the 80s and early 90s, middle 90s, was a great era for boxing in the city of Detroit.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't mention my boy Bob Every, who's on my Facebook, who you might be able to see. He posts a lot of pictures. He's the Lansing boxing guy. He does other stuff as well, but I told Bob, he subbed out of some shows in Lansing, and I told him, I said, dude, you're in my top three. I go, Angelo Dundee, Emmanuel Stewart, Bob Every. Three best boxing trainers I've ever known.
Wow. So
did you want more? I mean, I gave you Jack Nicklaus. I don't get, you'd have to ask me about guys because I've talked to. I can't imagine someone I haven't talked to. I've talked to Tiger many times.
Yeah.
Tiger came to the Buick Open 9 times, I believe it was, 9 or 10 times. We always got time with Tiger at the Buick. I went to other golf tournaments and got Tiger. So Tiger's, he's fine. If people know, is he tough to? No, he's all right. Just have to know how to talk to people. They don't need you as much today as they needed you back in the 80s and 90s because they make more money now. There's just more money on the table.
Yeah.
They needed the TV, they needed the media, they needed the pub more back then than they do now because they're all paid so well.
Yeah.
They don't need you as much.
Speaking of that, man, that's what it is. They like the guys, the athletes. At that time, today, I think it's been the same throughout history, where you got the sports journalists and you got the athletes, and then you got the coaches, and there's always a dynamic behind that. And like you said, you were really in the thick of it before the internet, before social media. In sports talk radio, it was starting to come up. And so back then, the relationships between players and sports broadcasters were really fiery. They're probably a little more toned down now, I would say, because access is so across the board, and athletes are almost their own sports media personalities in their own right, with their own Twitter and they're writing articles themselves now, like for the Athletic and stuff like that. So 80s and 90s, even early 2000s, the relationship that the fans had between themselves and the athletes was strictly between the sports journalists. So like, what was that dynamic for you, knowing that you were the voice of the fan? Really, you were the one that the fans were depending on to get that info. So what was that dynamic like for you, knowing that you had to bring the news to the fans?
Well, I think that this is something else we just addressed. Like my nephews, I have 2 nephews. They're 23, 20. They don't know life without the internet. They're getting to the point where they can't remember life before the smartphone. Forget the cell phone. They don't know life without the cell phone. They still think it's crazy when I tell tales about my car breaking down. I couldn't call anybody, and I would put my hand over it. Don't say it. It wasn't invented yet. There was no phone in the car. Okay? Yeah. Uncle Mark, what did you do? I got out and walked to the next nearest payphone I could find, like 3-4 miles, whatever it was. So it is funny being being in the business throughout the different eras like that. It's a crazy thing because it's so much has changed, even in just 20 or 30 years before the internet, then before the cell phone, then before the smartphone. So I think there was a bigger responsibility back before the really heavy internet. And heavy internet to me is 2000, maybe 2000. I don't think the 90s, there wasn't a lot there you could find. Wikipedia wasn't a big deal then. When you really look at where the life demarcation is probably at the smartphone and YouTube. The fact that YouTube is there is an amazing thing. The YouTube thing is one of the greatest inventions. Like if you wanted to see some of my old stuff on Fox 2, you can go to YouTube. In the search bar, type in Mark Wilson, Fox 2 Detroit, and there are, I used to say, hours of viewing pleasure.
Yeah.
It's hours, but there's a lot on there that we put on there. So, when you just brought up Sports Talk. So, Sports Talk Radio in Detroit, for example, started July 11th, 1994. That's the day that WDFN went on the air. Okay? Prior to that, there were just selected shows at a couple of radio stations.
Yeah.
That's all there was. I actually did a call-in show back in the 80s in Lansing. There was a call-in show we did. I did it twice a week. Wasn't that big a deal. I don't think anybody listened. So when 1994 came and DFN became a thing, that changed the game. That gave the fans a voice. That allowed fans to be a part of this all. Before that, they didn't have anything. How How would they ever send you a letter? I mean, what were they going to do? They weren't involved. The fan you would do the work, they would view it. That's it. So 1994 comes, all of a sudden there's telephone lines, and you can call up and you can be a part of this every single day. That changed everything. That dynamic. I didn't join DFN until it was 97, 98, whatever. There were 3 or 4 years in already. I kind of fought it. I didn't want to do it. I was doing the TV, and I didn't really want to do it. I was offered a job to start at DFN. Lorna offered me a job and I had to do both. I had to do television and radio, and I just was, I was too tired, and the boss, if you know who I'm talking about, honey, wasn't going to let me do that. So, she wanted her time.
Yeah.
So I just do it. So until I left the television thing, that's when I decided to go to DFN. And that's when I started that ride. I actually started with Pat Caputo. Pat Caputo and I did the, I started doing part-time. I did the DFN, and I did we call it College Football Saturday, and I had to go to Michigan, and I'm a Spartan. And I had to go to Michigan every Saturday, sit at a big home, and deal with that, because Ann Arbor, I'm pretty well noted that I'm not a fan. I'm a Spartan, I'm a graduate, Michigan State. But I did it. I did my job, went there, did my thing. So I started that way, but it was with Pat Caputo that we started doing the full-time radio show.
Wow.
That was in 98, I believe.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Pat Caputo. I actually took a sports writing class at OU. I'm a big fan. But so that's cool to know that you guys are kind of like, like the OGs, of the sports talk game in Detroit.
Pat would have, if Pat Caputo had said yes to doing the show going forward, there would not have been a Rob Parker.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It was only when Pat decided he couldn't do both the writing at the Oakland Press, because he would be at Tiger Stadium or something like that, or wherever, till the wee hours of the morning. And we were doing a morning show at the time.
Yeah.
And he was getting 2 hours of sleep. He lived up in Lake Orion or something. He would go up back from a Tiger game, go home, get 2 hours, and come back in and do the 6 o'clock. We had to be on at 6. Again, we're not on at 6:03. We're on at 6. So he had to be back in the chair and get ready to do sport. And he did a great job, and I love Pat for it. And he really battled through it, being tired all the time. But we were finally offered the gig as a full-time thing to keep going forward. And he decided it was his decision not to do it. So we went out and I actually did, we did auditions with a lot of different people before we settled. I shouldn't say settled on Rob. I didn't know Rob would be available. He was working in New York at the time.
Okay.
And I knew Rob from the first time he was in Detroit. He was on the original Odd Couple show with Mike Stoney.
Really?
But that only lasted like 8 or 9 months, and then he was off to New York.
It was called The Odd Couple?
The show was called The Odd Couple. It was Rob and Stoney.
Wow, okay. So that was before Stoney and Wojo then, yeah.
That was before Stoney and Wojo, correct. Some people have forgotten that, but that show was called The Odd Couple, which is what Rob's Fox Sports radio show is called now.
That's why that hit me, yeah, because I know he's doing that now, yeah, with Chris
Rob
Broussard.
Parker's an old-time soul. He likes bringing stuff back. He loves that. He loves things that he's already done that he bring back to life. And The Odd Couple had been off since 1994, so they brought it back. It had been 23 years. That was on the national scene. Nobody really knew, and now that's The Odd Couple with Chris Broussard. But I hooked up with Rob in '98.
Wow.
That's when we started doing the Parker and the Man show.
Yeah. And that show, okay, so because that show really did bring sports talk radio in Detroit to the forefront. It was driving ratings, and people realized that there is a hunger for sports talk radio in Detroit, and especially Detroit teams were really doing. I mean, the Wings, of course. It just sports in general in Detroit. It was at that time. Detroit I think it still is now. Even though all their teams are losing, it's still the best sports town in America. I know. So you're from Chicago, but you made your bones here in Detroit. What do you think's the best sports town right now?
Don't get me wrong. I'm going to tell you the this right now, okay? And I'm not afraid to say it. I love the D, okay? I love Metro Detroit. I love the state of Michigan, okay? Yeah. Even the crappy winter, I can handle it. I did for 3 decades or more. I love Detroit, and I love the city. I've never been a hater. I know the people that try to bring it down, and there's certainly things wrong with it that they're trying to correct to this day. Mike Duggan, said the litany of mayors has tried to do this. Yeah. There's still certain things about the city I love immensely, and I did live in the suburb of West Bloomfield many years, Walled Lake as well. I'm not a hater, so let me make that clear. So like when we moved to Vegas, I'm old and it was time. I wanted weather. But I love that. And you're right. When that late 90s, that was starting to really, when the internet combined with the sports talk radio, combined with the interaction, and then you move it forward, you get closer to social media, you're talking about that was a whirling dervish, baby. Yeah. And it was great. But I'll tell you this, DFN was already on. When we went to 97.1, we put it on the map on the FM side.
Yes.
Before that, you would never have used the FM dial for talk radio. It was for music, obviously crystal clear. You want music on there, and the idea of putting talk radio on there 24/7 was almost unheard of. And CBS, to their credit, about 29, I think it was, stations around the country started doing this hot talk format. We joined on when that station was getting a 0.0 and wasn't billing 5 cents worth of advertising. Not 5 cents. And I thought there were times we thought it wasn't going to make it. But we hung tight, and we kept going. And Stern helped a lot. Having Howard on in the morning actually helped us a lot. And there was one point where our PD wanted to take Howard Stern off. I told him under no circumstances is Howard Stern coming off. I love Howard to this day. Someone says, "How are you spending your time?" I said, "I'm listening to a lot of Howard."
Wow.
On the Sirius XM. But
yeah.
And we were the only sports station to do it. I mean, the only sports show, because most of the other talk shows were just talk shows. It was us and the Junkies, the sports junkies in Washington, D.C., that were the 2 sports programs on the FM dial for CBS at that time in the late 90s and into the 2000s. But it took us a long time to get that traction to where we ended up being a #1 show in Detroit, billing a lot of money, great ratings. It took some time. It wasn't overnight. But you're right. You hit the nail on the head. That genesis started, I think, with us going to the FM side because 97.1 morphed into a sports station, and here they are today as one of the biggest local stations, whether you like it or not, in America for sports talk on the FM dial.
Oh, absolutely. And you got your shows. Like, I listen to sports talk every day of my life, and I wonder, like, because you guys, I remember, were the it was like 7 to 10, I think. Do you think the show could have? What I was going to say.
We actually started doing weekends.
Go ahead.
We started on the weekend only.
Yeah.
They paid us. We could not believe what they paid us. They paid us great and gave us full CBS benefits. It wasn't too long, and then we went to late night. We did 10 at night to 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Wow.
And I still have people to this day say how much they miss us overnight. And then we quickly went from there. Kramer and Twitch came in. I remember Kramer and Twitch at all. And then we moved to 7 to 10. And that's where we stayed. We stayed there on the dial for the rest of our time. We stayed at 7 to 10 p.m. Actually, we went 7 to 11 for a while. We did 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then Penn Gillette, it was a picture I'm looking at right now.
Penn and Teller.
From Penn and Teller. It's one of the pictures on my desk. Just because Honey looks so cute. That picture. But he did a 1-hour show for a while. I don't know if people remember that. He did a 1-hour radio show. Penn Gillette from Penn and Teller. And so we would take a break. We would go 7 to 10, and we'd come back and do 11 to midnight.
See,
we did that for a while. So we went from the 4 hours to the 3 hours eventually.
Yeah. My question is, do you think the show could have been even more successful if it was during the drive time? You know, like right now it's Mike Valente. You know, his show is huge, and he's got that drive time era. I know, like at this time, it's during this coronavirus, it's not going to matter, but. Do you think that if you guys were out during the drive time, it would have been even bigger, or do you think having that 7 to 10 slot worked for you for a specific reason?
I think there's two schools of thought. One is, would we have preferred to be on 4 to 7 or something after the drive at the time? I would say no, only because Dominski and Doyle were so good at what they did.
Ah, yeah, Dominski and Doyle, yep.
Really good at what they did. So that I would never have offended them by saying, "Oh, you should take these idiots off." And, we like Bill and Bill and Jeff. Lord, almost read their names a lot. We liked what they offered.
Yeah.
So we liked following them.
Yeah.
It was really a help. Okay, so I would say, would it have benefited us? I don't know. I don't know. I'll tell you what I liked about 7 to 10, and obviously Rob was still writing his columns, so he missed some days because he had to be at events. And I just sacrificed it. I said, look, I don't have to be at the event, but we did a lot of live events too. Don't get me wrong. I'd be at the Palace or Joe Louis or whatever, Tiger Stadium at the Comerica I guess at the time. We actually did a lot of shows from the Elwood outside Comerica. I think we were the alternative. We were the alternative to the people who didn't necessarily want to sit and watch a game from start to finish. So we were. And part of the thing I made sure we did was we always updated the scores, and we gave whatever details. So we didn't let a Tiger game go by without giving the update all the time. So they knew they could turn to us and at least know the score of the game. And there were times when I'd say, look, guys, I got to be honest with you, it's 5-5 in the ninth. If you want to flick over there, you go do it. I don't blame you.
Wow.
So that I think they appreciated that. So as the alternative, it sure didn't hurt our numbers, because our numbers, I told you we got the number one, and I don't mean number one sports show, number one show in Detroit of all radio stations.
Yeah.
Rob just talked about it yesterday, when Rob is very proud of that, and I'm very proud of that we got to that point. I'm very proud of the city of Detroit that they appreciated us enough to help us get to that point. So your question is a good one. Would it have helped if we, or benefited differently if we had done afternoon drive? Now, we did do afternoon drive when we got to WCHB. When we left 97.1, we got to CHB furthering on the resume here, 2007 and 08. We did afternoon drive there, and we did pretty well.
Yeah.
WCHB at the time, 1200 AM, was kind of a blowhard, big stick. We call it a big stick. About 50,000 watt station. It was heard everywhere.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were on some little mom and pop station. We were on a pretty good, Radio 1 was we loved working there. We loved the people, and we loved the facility. It was great, right down by the river. Fantastic. We loved being downtown. Because back, 97.1 we moved out to Southfield. So we were back downtown at WCHB. And we did a lot of live shows. So there we did afternoon drive. And we kind of appreciated both of them. But I think at the time, at 97.1, we were much better slotted at the nighttime position.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you talk about the business on a whole? Like, as far as, like, it's just... You hear stories about how cutthroat radio, like 97.1 just went through some cuts, but it's always had like the riff. You're hearing longtime radio personalities just getting let go, and I'm sure you've gone through that situation yourself, where you were a beloved radio personality, TV personality in Detroit, and I don't know how. It worked out where you left your job, or you got cut, however it went down. But it's such a cutthroat business. How were you able to sustain so much success while you were doing it? And how did it feel when these changes just got brought down? And how tough just the business is on a whole?
Well, Tom, look, don't cry for me, Argentina. I mean. All right, a lot of businesses are that way. It's nothing special to
Yeah.
We got that a month, like less than a month later, we were over there. So I haven't had it as bad as some guys have had it. Certainly I've seen it. And yes, it's tough, but it is tough in every business. I guess I don't dwell on that. Was it easier back in the 70s and 80s to get into it? For sure. Wasn't anywhere near the competition. Now you got broadcast schools all over America that probably graduate more kids every term than there are jobs in the country for that time. And then you're talking about just one term. So the kids that get into it are finding it very difficult because they want to make money doing either sports talk or be on television and do reporting or being a TV sports anchor. And I stammer because my old roommate in college used to run Specs Howard.
Yeah.
And he would always ask me to do talks to the classes. And I said, you don't want me? Because I'll tell the truth. And he kind of went, oh, maybe you're right. Because, look, I can tell you all day, if you work hard, good things happen, but that's not true. George Perlis, I used to have the old Michigan State football coach, that was his line. Work hard, good things happen. I said, George, that's not true. There are plenty of people who work hard and good things don't happen to them.
Yeah.
You can't use that line. You use the line because you use it only when you succeed. But you don't use that line when you fail. So don't use work hard, good things happen. You may work very hard and you may get nothing. You may finish second. You may finish fourth. You might not get what you want. So be very careful about that. There's got to be a lot of luck involved. You've got to be very persistent. Some of the tenets that were back in the day that would get you gigs still remain, but there's just less gigs. Technology, we always say, you can fire people, but you can't fire technology. So the more technology there is, and the more that people are willing to work for free, podcasts, social media influencers, people are willing to do that stuff and give free content, whether it be a blog, a vlog, or other. It's just free content. That makes it very difficult to go out there and make money in this business if that's what you want to do for a career.
Yeah.
You want to be in it. Doesn't mean there's not jobs, though, Tom. There are jobs. You turn on your TV tonight, there are people working.
Yep.
Turn on Channel 7. Brad Galley's doing the sports, right?
Yep.
Okay, turn on Channel 4. Bernie's still hanging in. Turn on Channel 2. My boy Dan Miller's still hanging in there. Woody Woodruff's still there. Jennifer Hammond, who we brought on way back when, she's still there. There are people with jobs. It's harder to get them, though, because some of those people don't leave them very much. So there's not a lot of opportunity for younger people in big markets. And this is the other thing I tell people. If you're not willing to go everywhere or anywhere around the country, then stop complaining about not finding a job, because there are jobs available. But you got to be willing to move there.
You might have to go to Fayetteville, Arkansas, or like who knows?
Well, I'll give you an example. I hope this is interesting to the people listening, but I'll give you an example of someone. Dana Jacobson, who's on CBS. She used to be on ESPN. Now she's on CBS. Does sports and news. You know what I'm talking about, Dana?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, Dana Jacobson was an intern for us at Channel 2.
Oh wow, I didn't know that though.
She went to the University of Michigan, came to Channel 2, and she actually interned and then was interning on the desk, the assignment desk. And she made a tape, and she put a jacket on, and she made a tape, and she sent it off, and she persisted and persisted. Now, she didn't have to leave the state, but she had to go to Traverse City. It's not Detroit, it's Traverse City. It's a nice place, but it's not a big market. And she spent some time in Traverse City. She went to Sacramento after that, went to the national scene. She kept working and working and working. That's an example of that, Tom. There's one for you.
That's what it is. It's the grind. You see all these, all the stars. They didn't, whoever's the stars of sports journalism. And they didn't start it. Well, maybe you started at ESPN, as you said, but not everybody doesn't start off at doing the sideline reporting on Monday Night Football.
Yeah. Guys, the landscape is littered with plenty of guys who grew up in Philadelphia or New York or LA or something, and they got to go to Bend, Oregon, or Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Or a buddy of mine who's now at Fox Sports North-Southwest, who I hired in Lansing, Rick Renner. He started in, like, Tyler, Texas. He got into, like, Alexandria, Louisiana. He's a Florida guy, but he went there. If he had just stayed and said, I'm not going to go anywhere but here. And that's sometimes I find troubling in Michigan, that they want to stay in their comfort zone. Their parents still live there, their family's there, so they want to work either in Detroit or Lansing or Grand Rapids or Flint. Grand Rapids and Flint and Lansing are pretty good markets. It's not easy to break through in there.
Yeah.
They're not bad. I tell people all the time, I'm here in Las Vegas, and this city's getting bigger all the time. Our media here sucks. I mean, I don't want to swear on your podcast, but it's a piece of garbage. It is. I'm not afraid to say that. It's terrible.
Well, why? What makes it they got to be self-respecting people who went to school and are trying to do a good job. Like, what makes it not good?
Because Las Vegas still acts like a little smaller town. Yes, they got the Golden Knights now. Yes, the Raiders are coming in a couple of months. The stadium, by the way, I just drove by it again yesterday. It looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they're not used to being big time. When I moved here permanently in 2015, I had come out here in 2010 to do a radio show with my quote-unquote work wife, the great Jessica Hall. We did a kind of an entertainment show out here because that's what I wanted to do. And so we did it in 2010, 11, kind of in 12, and I went back to Detroit to run WCAR 1090, program director of operations, which forget it, it doesn't matter. But I was doing that, that's what I came back for.
Yeah.
When I came back here in 15, we didn't have the Knights yet. We didn't have the Raiders. No, there was no Raiders plan in 2015 yet. Kind of the charm of Las Vegas is they didn't have professional sports. We had the AAA baseball. There was a minor league hockey team. That was it. Now you got a National Hockey League team and the NFL, and there's negotiations supposedly in Major League Baseball for a team, and we think the NBA will come eventually. That would be all four major sports in Las Vegas when in 2015, just 5 years ago, we didn't have any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, the running Rebels, and that was it, man.
Rebs, you have UNLV, basketball, the football team's terrible, has been forever. Basketball had the great early 90s with Jerry Tarkanian and Larry Johnson, that group. Anderson Hunt from Detroit played on that team, UNLV. The media never caught on, so they don't put a lot of emphasis. We have 4 television stations here. 2 don't even have a sportscast at night. Not a regular, committed nightly sportscast on their news.
Wow.
I know it's hard to imagine. That'd be like saying if Channel 7 or Channel 4 or Channel 2 just decided to blow it off and say, look, when there's a big event, we'll cover it, but we're not going to have a dedicated sports guy sitting on the desk.
No, you couldn't do that in Detroit, man. There's no way.
You would never even imagine doing that. But here it's common. And the Sports Talk Radio, there are 3 stations, and they're owned by one company, and it's awful.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to be part of that, so I don't do a lot of, as I told you, I showed you a picture. I have done a couple of local shows in this town as a courtesy.
Yeah.
But I would never have wanted to work full time here.
Yeah.
Bring me consideration. What I do now is I do some national stuff. I've been on Fox. I used to go on NBC Sports Radio a lot, but then they folded. I knew that was coming. But Las Vegas is not a consideration. It's just not a very good sports media town. Like Detroit is maybe the best sports media town in the country. Still shocks me, Tom, that there's only one listenable radio station for sports in Detroit right now. We tried to change that. We went to 1090. We just had some issues, mostly with ownership and whatnot, but I don't need to go into that. We should have been a competitor. So should 105.1 have been a competitor, but they didn't do it right. To think that in 2020, you're down, you still only have one sports talk radio station. I mean, Houston's got like 5. St. Louis has like 4. Miami's got 3. All over the country, you can see cities with multiple sports talk radio stations with local talent. Detroit's got 1. That's it. 1.
And they tried to cover because there was because wait, well there's still 11:30 WDFN is they're still on AM right now. I think most of it is national radio. They got I think they have a couple shows.
Yeah, but Tom,
but man, it's just not.
Tom, no rating number.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening to it. No rating number. Matt Shepard was doing a show. I love Shep. I love him doing the Tigers. I really do.
Yeah.
Sean, and then Belisian was doing it. I love Sean. I mean,
I'm a big fan of both those guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love Sean Belizean, I love Matt Shepard. But if no one's going to be listening to it, and you're not going to do the work, that's not their responsibility necessarily. The station needed to pick up and do something with that, but they decided not to. So you're, again, staring at 97.1 is the only one in town. It still shocks me that if you go to my station right now, you will hear SB Nation Radio. I flipped it before I left for here. It's still on there, on 1090.
Yeah.
If you listen to it, you can get it wherever you are.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you? So there's the one, and like I said, like there's others that try to compete. But how do you compete when you have when you? I don't understand how Houston has. You said they have 5. Now is it local sports talk? Like, how do you compete?
Phoenix has like 3 with like full complement of local talent.
Now, your local talent has to be like, because you guys were so good at this back in the day where you would go out to the bars and like if there was a big Wings game, you guys would be across, like maybe either at the game or across the street, or like the street teams are so huge where you're doing these live events and getting these people involved.
Now you brought up something that's dear to me. I love the street team stuff. We used to love going out.
Oh, did you really?
I can't even tell you how many places in the area. We went everywhere. I mean, all the way down near Ohio, all the way up to Port Huron, out to Brighton. We did shows even past that. And of course, we went on the road a lot. We went to the Super Bowl. We went to a couple Super Bowls. We went with the Pistons. We went with the Wings, various places. We traveled. We did, but that takes money. It takes money. It takes commitment and money. I wanted to do the exact same thing at 1090. When I started there in 2012, and I was running the place, I said I have to have full authority to do this. It costs money. People cost money. Going on the road costs money. Street teams cost money. Hiring people costs money. Setting up equipment costs money. Getting phone lines, blah, 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 all costs money.
Yeah.
And a lot of ownership, either they didn't realize how much the financial investment would be, or they didn't want to do it, and that's why things fold.
But that's how. Why start? Why put anything into it if you're not going to go the full way? Because especially at that time, man, that's what you needed. You needed to get the buzz out there, and you weren't going to just do it having one radio station amongst 100 radio stations. There's 100 different choices, and at this time, how many people are watching or listening to the radio at their house? Not many. It's all about people in their cars, I think. But to get people to listen and to get to advertisers to understand what was going on, you guys had to get out there and beat the pavement, man, and meet the fans and get out there.
They were just lucky. We liked being out. A lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys are scared. They have a little stage fright. They want to do it. But, Tom Izzo has a line that I love. I got a bunch of Izzo-isms that I use. One of the lines that Tom Izzo uses, you can't do it till you dream it. And you asked about why does ownership do that? Because sometimes ownership dreams, and then they don't do. Yeah. That's part of life. It happens. It's not just in radio. It happens in other businesses. But, they can't do it till you dream it. So once you dream it, you want to set out to do it. You have to figure out a game plan and whatnot. It's not always perfect. If you're waiting for perfection, you know this. You're going to wait an awfully long time. It's not going to come. So you have to get as close to it as you can. But, it still frustrates me to this day that the 1090 project in Detroit, which we ended in 13 pretty much, and then we went national, ended like it did. We thought we could be a real competitor. We had good people on the air. Art Regner was on with us. Yeah,
Art Regner's a legend. Yeah.
A legend. Eddie Mio, former Red Wing goalie, was on our afternoon. Damon Perry, the dog. We had good people. I was doing the night show. I chose my own show. I picked the nights. I wanted to stay where I was, successful. Yeah. And we got a little traction for about a year, and then the ownership thing happened, and it was a shame. It was a shame because we had big plans. You should have seen our new studio. We had a studio on Telegraph between 14 and Maple. People don't even know it's there. It's Joe Dumar's former business offices. We took it over, revamped the whole thing. We never really got in there to do radio shows, but I wish you could have seen it. It was spectacular. We had a man cave studio. We had 4 other studios for other stations. We had a huge, conference rooms. We were going to bring people in. We were going to put stands so you could go and physically watch the show at the station.
Yeah.
We would get food carts, so people would get food while they were there. We had 2 dining areas. It was great. We were ESPN 1090. And I had ordered a ticker. We have an big ESPN sign outside this, right on Telegraph, because the current station's in Garden City, at Vinoy and Middle Belt or whatever, Vinoy and Ford Road. Almost forget where I used to go for a year and a half. But that's where the old WCAR is out in Garden City. Yeah. We were going to move. We had already done. Everything was in. Furniture, rack room, everything was in for all our stuff. On Telegraph, we never really moved in there.
What happened? What?
Ownership. The money just drained out, and I don't want to give away all the secrets, and it's probably not fair anyhow. It's way past its time, but it happens in other businesses. Businesses fail. What do they say? 60% of all small businesses go under. Yeah. That's basically a small business. That project was basically a small business in a big man's world in the 11th, 12th largest market in the country. But it could have been successful. I think we would have really given 97 one a run for the money. I don't think we were overtaking them, not because we wouldn't have an FM signal unless we found a partner. We were going to upgrade the signal. We had new towers. We were going to upgrade all the signals for 1090 and 1160, CXI, the old CXI, because the company that we worked for was a family-owned. They had like 4 or 5 stations in Detroit, and we were going to put them all in that building. Yeah. It could have been something really good, but it would have taken time, and that cost bucks, baby. Cost big time, buku bucks.
I bet. All right, listen. I know a lot of fans that are going to be listening to this podcast we're big, such as myself, Parker and the Man fans. I think we would like to know, what's your relationship with Rob right now? How's that all working out with you guys?
We love each other. No, we do. Rob and I just, he sent me an email he wanted me to look at a thing he's doing for himself just yesterday. We texted back and forth for about an hour yesterday. He comes to Las Vegas a lot because he loves it here, but he also likes to see his boo. You know what I'm saying? And we have dinner, and Bernie Fratto has done the show, who was our super sub, if you remember Bernie.
Oh, yeah.
And Bernie does Straight Out of Vegas on Fox Sports Radio on Saturday nights. If anybody wants to listen to that, it's on at, I think it's 2 in the morning, but you can always download it and listen later. So Rob and Bernie are both at Fox, but Bernie lives here in Las Vegas, so I see him a lot. And Rob's in Los Angeles with the Fox stuff, and our relationship has always been great. We've never said a terse word to each other. It's always been. Some people think we're contentious. That it's not an act, but that was the job, and then personal life is a different deal. And we just have it's a mutual admiration society between the two of us. So that relationship feel great.
That's awesome.
And he's put me on. He'll call me and say, "Hey, can you sub for Chris?" And I go, "Do I have to?" And he says yes, and they give me a studio here in Las Vegas, and I do the show with him.
See, that's got to be cool, man. But look, because it is. I want to talk about the dynamic, because it is. It's Parker and the Man. It wasn't Parker and Wilson. And I wonder about the title. Actually, that's kind of, why is it Parker and the Man and not Parker and Wilson?
Tom, I got to tell you something, okay? You got to stop asking good questions.
That's what I do, man.
It's what you do. Good for you. I'm finding that out. That's a great point, and I've said it now 3 or 4 times to you because I'm seeing what you're coming up with. When Pat and I were doing it, we actually started doing it for the Red Wings. So we call it the Red Wings Playoff Morning Show, even when the Red Wings were done. And of course, we were there for the second, of the back-to-back '98 championship. Stanley Cup championship. So when Rob came in, the first thing he said was, "What do you want to call the show?" And I told him I wasn't a big fan of my name being on. I don't know why. I think Wilson's on Mark, and Mark. So I kind of let Rob take over that. I said, "You can name the show, but I got to approve it. I don't want to do something stupid." So of course, the first thing he mentioned, I'll tell you what it was. He wanted to call the show the Morning Munsters.
What?
He loves old television. He wanted to call the show the Morning Munster, like the old Munsters. They had it, the Munsters. I didn't watch it a lot as a kid, or I don't know, whatever, the Munsters. And I said, no.
Good call on that one.
And by the way, there is a show in this country, I don't know where it is, but there was, at least there was, called the Morning Munsters.
Yeah.
Someone else used it. The second one he came up with was the old Chico and the Man show. I don't know if you remember Freddie Prinze, the late Freddie Prinze, and Jack Albertson did a show called Chico and the Man. You can go to YouTube and look it up.
Was it? Real quick. On that TV show, wasn't it's escaping right now, but there was a Michigan football player who his son was the father of on that show, wasn't it?
I have to feign ignorance, dude. I'm not, as Rob is a huge old TV fan, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll have to look that up, and when we post the show, I'll comment on this, because there's something about that, man. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, Freddie Prinze Sr. is the father of Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yes.
Freddie Prinze died a long time ago.
Yeah.
Very tragic, young guy. So anyhow, Chico and the Man, he said, what about Parker? And what about Parker and the Man? And I said, I get to be the Man. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought, I don't know, is that a thing? And my first reaction was, I know why you want to do it, because you can always replace the Man. It's going to be hard to replace the Parker part. But then I started thinking, well, okay, the Man. I like Stan the Man Musial, the old baseball. There's an old-timey name.
Stan the Man.
But I will tell you, I'm going to be, when I brought the name home to my little sweetie there, she said, wait a second, I can be the woman. And we went, you could be the woman. And that kind of made she wanted to be the woman.
Come on.
So it sucked. I said, fine, we'll do Parker and the Man. And now I use it in my own thing, my own business cards. I'm looking right at them, say Mark the Man Wilson. I like how that flows. Mark the Man Wilson. I've always liked it.
It was a good.
Rob liked the fact that I kept that in my name, like Mark the Man Wilson. He always referred to it. It became a brand. Like when I was just on Fox the other day with Bernie, and Bernie was about to introduce me, and I was going to say, don't forget. I know. He goes, I know. Mark the Man Wilson, not just Mark Wilson. Mark the Man Wilson. No, I wouldn't say anything but. So even he knew to call me that.
Yeah. Man, and it was Justin Fargas, I think his dad was Huggy Bear.
Yeah, Huggy Bear. He was just right. The running back from Michigan, yes.
Yeah, so sorry, I think I got some things crossed up there. But yeah. But man, so I just...
He was on the old cop show, Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch, yeah. So you were talking about Chico and the Man, and I was thinking of Starsky and Hutch, so yeah.
Right.
My apologies, man. These things are...
No. I give you credit for even knowing it at all.
But these stories are great, man. And I really always wanted to know where that name actually came from, man. So it's good to...
Rob pick it. I said you can pick it. I don't care. That was... Rob did... We all had our duties. Like, I wanted to make sure I controlled the music on the show. Which I did. He never, ever... He may have had somebody wanted me to play one or two times and he would give me it. I'd play it. But I controlled our... Music was very important.
Yeah.
Coming in and coming out of breaks and stuff, that's very important stuff. It actually makes a difference. Research has shown it makes a difference.
You know...
So I wanted to... My musical choices are very eclectic. I don't really like them. I like a lot of stuff you wouldn't believe. So I'm a big European metal guy. I like operatic, melodic metal to death metal, but all European. Sweden, Finland, Germany, Austria. They all sing in English, but there's some great stuff. I got like 300 bands I love to this day. They're all brand new material. I don't have to rely on old classic rock band. I'm not a big classic rock guy. I like new metal stuff from Europe. So my tastes are pretty... I said, you're going to trust me. I used to tell Rob, trust me on the music, okay? It's going to make a difference. And it did. We had people used to call all the time, what song was that you just played? What is that from? Like, all the time. There's a little inside you don't even know. We got more calls during the break about what music did I just play.
Wow. What was it like? How were you able to? Could you just play legally? Like, because the clips would only be like what 30 seconds at most, like coming in from breaks and stuff, or like.
No. We had full ASCAP. We paid the money. You paid money on BMI and ASCAP, and you can play whatever you want for as long. If you pay the full royalty fee, and it's pretty expensive, but it's not as expensive as you think for a radio station that size.
Yeah.
You get the clearance to play anything you want as long as you want. You can play full song. We broke music. I remember the day our PD walked in. He has a CD in his hand. He says, "You want to break the new Rolling Stones song?"
No way.
I went, "Give it to me." I said, "Well, this is the person said no." What song? I think it was "Don't Stop." It was "Don't Stop." We broke that song. That's just an example. We did a bunch, but our PD would get it and say, "You can play it first," because they're not throwing it out to the regular stations till tomorrow morning. But we're on at night. You can play it right now.
Wow.
Say, I think on that one I might have said that here's the North American debut of the Rolling Stones latest. We actually promoted it. The show was much more than sports. If you remember, we did a lot of off-sports stuff.
Yeah.
And that became a standard. I mean, it's a standard to do the off-sports topics and more guy talk and whatnot because people we respect, especially in Detroit, we respected our listeners enough to know they don't just have to have sports. It's going to be sports-centric. It's going to be heavy, but we're still going to give you a piece of us and some other stuff just to have fun with it. If you just have, we played a lot of games. A lot of stations don't play games. We played a lot. We had a game for every day.
How did you go through it?
We wanted to give away good prizes.
Yeah. How did you go through it as a host? Like as a professional, but also as a human being, how did you keep the standard of being, because especially becoming a rising sports talk radio star, as you and Rob both were, because that show was just blowing up. How did you keep the same mentality every day? Because people you have your days where you just don't want to go to work that day, or you're just not feeling it that day, but you're on the radio, and you're supposed to give 100%, and your 100% better be damn good. How did you keep that up every show?
I would tell you that it's your job. It's like anything. I've got a ton of energy. Rob has a ton of energy. We were able to parlay the energy, and you know what? I mean, let's face it, Tom. You're getting paid pretty good. You're working 3 hours a day. There's not much to complain about there. Obviously, there's preparation involved too. This takes some time. It's not just the 3 hours you're on the air for. So there's a little prep time, obviously. But if you know your content and you're excited to go to do your gig, and we were always excited to go in there. I don't think we ever had, and part of that was because we liked each other. We liked our producers, Flaj and Gavin and Flounder. Flounder's now working in Indianapolis. We were just excited to get in every day. We had good facilities. They treated us well, and that makes it easy. And by the way, a nap doesn't hurt either.
Yeah.
And the fact that I spent a lot of my years wearing beautiful suits. Okay, I've spent a lot of years in really nice suits doing television work, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I got in the radio, I said, all that's coming off, man. Also doesn't help, doesn't hurt. I would go into the station like t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, and we were comfortable.
Yeah.
You asked me the question, I'm answering it. How do you keep that up? You find your little ways. And part of that was I said, I'm gonna always be comfortable coming in here. I'm gonna look like a slob half the time, but I was always comfortable doing it. Even if we had guests in the studio, I was always amazed. They said, "Do you ever wear shoes?" I went, "No, not really. Not a big fan." But all that combined is how we do 5 days a week, sometimes 6 during football because we did the pre and post of the Lions.
Yeah.
For many years, we did pre and post of the flagship. That's a 6-day work week from August
That's right. Listen, did you ever? Was there ever a point where you started to lose a love for sports and it just became a job, or is there? Did you have such a passion for sports that it was like that old cliche? You know, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
I never liked it that much. That it was that I see some guys with a passion. It was all right, but I never was the opposite way either. No, I never lost. I always recharge the battery. I'm a stickler for information. I eat. Even if our shows weren't always about X's and O's and statistics, I'm a statistical freak. So I eat that stuff up for dinner and spit it out for lunch. I just love it. So to this day, I can look at stats all day. So that way I'm a geek about that. And I would say, no, I never got to a point where I didn't like it anymore. There were times when I wanted to do other things, and I did do other projects, like coming out to Vegas with Jessica and doing that radio show. That was a big deal for me because it got me out of my comfort zone. I wasn't just doing a sports show anymore. We did a little Vegas-y entertainment radio show. It was fantastic. I loved it. We probably still be doing it to this day, but there were some personal issues, not between her and I, but I won't give it away, but there were some things that went on that we had to end the program at the time, thinking we might get back to it, but we just didn't, because I took the 1098. But I never didn't like, to this day, I can go do a sports show right now. I'm doing it with you. I'm doing it with you. We've been on your podcast now for about an hour and a half. I sound pretty enthusiastic, right?
You sure do, and so do I. And again, I can't thank you enough, man. This is great.
No, I don't mean like that. It's just that I didn't know you until you hit me up.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, Tom. I don't go. I turn a lot down now, especially during this the last month and a half. The wind is out of my sails with the coronavirus thing.
Yeah.
Because I can't get my bearings. Like a lot of people, I'm having an issue getting my bearings every day. But you make it through, like I told you earlier in the show. Just make it through.
Yeah.
So I just figured I'm gonna lay low. I'm gonna kind of power down on that. But I was doing that with you in Vegas anyhow. I was turning a lot of stuff down, even stuff that paid. I just said I don't know. I can always go back to it. So it's maybe a little bit more as I get older. But for the most part, no, I'm good to go. I tell the tale. People want to talk about the old times. I'm willing to tell the tale. When I was on Fox Sports Radio a week and a half ago, whatever, I talked about my experience with Tom Brady at the draft, because it's the 20th anniversary of the draft. Because I have some crazy experiences a little bit with Brady. When, because if he had been cut, no one would have noticed. He was a 6th-round draft pick. No one would have paid attention. That's a whole other thing, the Tom Brady story. I did a thing on Malice in the Palace. Did a thing on the Jordan 25th anniversary of the spring training experience, and also the 25th anniversary of replacement baseball. So if people want to tell the tale, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
We can talk about today or yesterday. It doesn't matter to me. I can do it. And keep an enthusiastic level about it.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. But you said the other thing about if you love what you do, it's never a job. No, I was never that passionate about it.
You still want the money. It's all about the money.
Dude, you gotta make a living.
Well, you gotta have money, but Mark, guys.
As the old saying goes, money can't buy you happiness, right? You always hear that?
Yeah.
You know what? I add to that. Money can't buy you happiness, ... But I'd sure like to find out for myself.
Yeah, you ain't kidding, man.
Okay? Add that to that. When someone says, money can't buy you happiness, add the ellipsis, ...
Yeah. And who is the exact originator of that quote? I don't know. Like, I bet if you Google it, there'd be 1,000 different answers.
I can Google it while I'm out with you. I got the Google wide open. Money can't buy you happy. I'll do it while you're on. Just keep talking.
All right, hey, yeah. I'm so tired because you brought up a couple things, man. Talking about Tom Brady, man, we can venture into some new stuff because news broke today. Look, this podcast isn't live; it's going to go out in a few days. But news broke today while we're talking that Gronk comes out of retirement and gets traded for a 4th-round pick to Tampa Bay. Gronk and Brady are going to reunite in Tampa Bay, man. So once you look up this, where did the money quote come from? We got to talk about this Gronk to Tampa Bay thing.
The money quote comes, I just looked it up. It comes from, I guess, the philosopher Rousseau from in the 1700s, who wrote, "Money can buy material things, but real happiness must be truly earned." So he basically, that proverb comes from him.
From the 1700s?
Well, he lived from 1712 to 1778.
Wow.
And he wrote about money in 1750.
Weren't they just trading gold and silver and like stuff back then? Was there even money back then? I'm a sports guy. I'm not a history guy, man.
I graduated from MSU, but you do not want to see my transcripts.
Hey, C's get degrees, my friend.
I understand that, but
that's what I live by, man.
That one would mean that I knew something.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, so at least we know where the quote comes from. We figured that out. How do we figure out what's going on in Tampa Bay, man? Is Tampa Bay going to be good?
I think that they're certainly going to try real hard. I think Bruce Arians desperately wants to, get that, hold that Lombardi thing up. And I think that Gronkowski is a great move. Makes sense. He's 30 years old. He turns 31 next month. So he's probably feeling good. He took the time off from football, so his legs are good to go. His wind is good to go. He gets to be with his boy. They get to live down in the Gulf side of Florida, which isn't too bad because I love the Gulf side of Florida. In fact, I used to have a place down in Siesta Key by Sarasota. Tom Brady's living in like Derek Jeter's old house or something.
Yeah, that's a wild connect. Yeah, dude, that real estate, dude. Whoever Jeter's and his real estate person is, man, is probably taking a vacation right now, man. Holy smokes!
I never put anything past Tom Brady or Rob Gronkowski. You can rip them all you want, but at the end of the day, I don't care what you say. They got 6 rings.
And they're entertaining people, and they kind of get it, man. Like he's trying to, like Tom Brady, he is kind of like a robot at some points, but he's still like he's a Michigan guy. I know you're a Michigan State guy. Now you know what? Oh, you know what? Off of this, I got one thing I want to get at you with though, and you probably had a battle with this, Mark, and I do. I deeply got to ask this question because I graduated from Oakland University. All right, I'm an OU guy. I grew up as a Michigan Wolverine fan. I deeply love the Wolverines, but I also have a girlfriend who grew up in East Lansing, who I'm probably gonna marry, and I have a best friend who is a Spartan, and he takes me to Spartan games. I go back to East Lansing all the time because that's where my girl's family is. I am like kind of a Spartan, but I'm a Wolverine guy, but I graduated from OU. I am a Michigan sports fan. Am I wrong for liking both Michigan and Michigan State, or do I have to pick one? I don't think I have to, and
The short answer is yes, you got to pick one.
I can't. I got to pick OU, and we don't even have a football team. But
That's the short answer. Here's the long answer.
Real quick, before Mark, I side with someone that you probably respect highly, and his name is Terry Foster. And he says it's okay because he's a Central Michigan guy. He graduated from Central Michigan. He says it's okay to be a State of Michigan fan. You can like both.
Okay, I said the short answer is you have to pick one. I will go with T. Okay, I do love Terry Foster. And I always wish the best for his health. So I will tell you this, and this goes back to 1980. So I don't know if I did the Judd Heathcote coaches show for the last 10 years of his career.
Wow, I did not know that. Wow, okay.
I went to Miami. I did the Bill Frieder coaches show. When Frieder took over the Wolverines from Johnny Orr.
Yeah.
And I was doing, back then, again, these are all
We got all the time in the world, Mark.
So fight. Okay, well, I don't know how long you want to do this, but Bill Frieder, it was a stick mic, center court at Chrysler, and we would just shoot it and be done with it. It was on a one-camera shoot, and I remember the day a young man named Bo Schembechler walks into Chrysler. It was just Bill and I, and the team was in the locker room. There was practice, and Bo comes walking through. He stops. He looks at me. I don't like to swear on this. So
you can swear. It's okay to swear here.
What's that?
It's okay to swear.
Okay, I'm only going to do it because it's the quote. He looks at us. He doesn't like Frieder very much. He sees me and goes, "A fucking Spartan doing a Wolverine show. What's next?"
Yes.
And I said, "I love you too, Bo." Now, Schembechler and I got along great. and later in the career, I mean, I use the word love a lot because I do like a lot of people, even Michigan guys.
Yeah.
So my point in that is, he didn't think you could do both. He didn't think a Spartan should be doing anything for Michigan, and he knew I was a Michigan Stater, and that was big with him. He didn't like the crossover. I will tell you that yes, you can. I've learned to like Michigan people. I learned to like Rick Leach. I learned to like Jamie Morris. I learned to like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I learned to like Tim Batuka. I learned to like Jim Harbaugh back in the 80s when Harbaugh was a quarterback. I actually really liked Jim Harbaugh. There's a lot of Michigan guys I like. There's a lot I don't like, but you can do both. So that's a long way around saying you can have both.
Now, is it arrogant for a Michigan fan to say that their biggest rival isn't Michigan State, it's Ohio State, or should
No, I'm going to stop you. I tell the Michigan State people all the time. I said, don't think that your rival, Michigan thinks you're their rival. Their rival is the team from the South. Okay? You got to find your own rival. Now, I said we should really be paired up with Penn State because we're land-grant colleges. Penn State should be Michigan State's rival, not Michigan. And Michigan's rival, especially in football, is Ohio State. That'll never change. That's why it's the last game of the season. You'll never see the Michigan-Ohio State game be in week 6. Okay, it's not going to happen. They don't care where they put the MSU game. They can stick it anywhere. They don't care. Their rival is Ohio State, and basketball is more of a rivalry with the two schools. But football, no. Michigan's rival is Ohio State, and I claim that now, pretty much, Michigan State's rival is Penn State because they play for that Pioneer Land Grant trophy.
Yeah. I like that too, but then
nobody likes to hear that when I say that.
it's not. I mean, it's weird. Like, all right, Michigan fans love knowing that they have the big rivalry against Ohio State, but they have that really big rivalry with Michigan State. Michigan State doesn't have that over Michigan one. They want it to be Penn State, maybe, and it could be. And they started putting that game at the last game of the season for a while, but then they just changed that. The Big Ten decided that the Michigan State Penn State thing, like what I don't even remember who the last game was last year. Was it Maryland or Rutgers or something? It wasn't even Penn State.
It might have been Maryland over Rutgers.
Yeah, I think it was, man, and that's frustrating because. What do you do with that, though? Now, being a Michigan State grad, I would like to know, with your background in sports media and with what's going on at Michigan State right now, and with D'Antonio stepping down, and with the whole Larry Nassar being the devil himself, where are your thoughts at with your alma mater?
It's a hard question. I almost begged off when the Nassar thing was happening. I knew John Geddert very well. He was part of that. John Geddert has Great Lakes Gymnastics and Twist Stars. And I did a lot of stories when I was in Lansing on John Geddert when he was first starting out in gymnastics. He wanted the pub, and I thought, it's interesting. It's, gymnastics, a little different stuff. I always like to cover the different high school stuff and other sports other than just the main ones. So it bothered me greatly that he might have been involved. Michigan State has to recover. They did the right thing by getting rid of people. They got rid of Luana Mark Hollis, people I liked a lot. I thought our president was second to none. I thought Mark Hollis, who started off as the basket, his initial job was taking practice jerseys for me when I'd ask him. He was the basketball manager. He made it all the way to the athletic director, and I was disappointed that he had to step down. But they made the changes. Kathy Klages, who was the gymnastics coach, I liked Kathy for years. She was there for 30 years. I thought these were primo people, and then this, like you said, the devil himself showed. I said we have to do whatever we can to respect these women and do it. I mean, whatever we can. End of story. No caveats. Whatever we can do, whatever we have to do as a Spartan community, and then we have to find a way to move forward. Steve Mariucci, he always is one of these. Steve Mariucci, I did the coaching show for Mariucci for all his time in Detroit with the Lions, which 2.5 years. He always said, "Forward we go." So we can look back because we don't want to make the same mistakes, and we have to do, like I said, take care of the people that need to be taken care of. But then we have to go forward and make it a better place. That's where it stands.
Yeah. So with D'Antonio stepping down, do you think this was the right time? Do you think he should have stepped down a year or two ago? Do you think like his style was getting passed by him? Because like the Spartan football has never touched such levels that D'Antonio brought them to. But man, the downward spiral happened quick.
Yeah, don't get too extreme. Don't get so extreme. There was a price to pay because guys were leaving, and it was hard. When you're good, and this is why it's hard to sustain it. You gotta forget this. When you're good and you're winning a Rose Bowl and you're going to a national championship Final Four, and you're doing this. You're doing it with guys that you think are going to play for you for 4 years. It gets hard to recruit then because guys want to play right away, but there are guys in front of them, so you're not going to get the great recruits. This happens at all schools. This is why USC isn't as good as it used to be. UCLA used to be a powerhouse. Now they're not anymore. Texas took a downturn. This isn't new. This didn't just happen at MSU. I got bad news for you. Michigan hasn't won a Big Ten title in 15 years. 15 years. Hello, Susan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is hard news to hear.
A big championship. They in Iowa. That's the last time Iowa did too.
Yeah.
Say what you want. Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz replaced Hayden Fry. That 1976 to now, they've had 2 coaches at Iowa. How many Rose Bowls have they won? I'll give you a minute. How many? Between the 2 of them, Ferentz and Hayden Fry. How many Rose Bowls?
0.
0. Not 1.
And that's a good program over there, man.
Everybody thinks they are.
They put out pros. They play in big games.
They've had 2 coaches in the last 44 years, and they won none Rose Bowls. 0. None.
Yeah.
And as I just said, Michigan, I'll say it again just because I have fun saying it, 15 years, no Big Ten title.
I know.
They have yet to be involved in the Big Ten championship game. So what Mark D'Antonio did, let's now take the batting weight off the bat, make it lighter, is pretty amazing. And he left at the right time. I think it was about the time. I would not have minded if Mark had stayed another year or 2 at all. You had to be 3 out of the last 4 years. I said,
was there some look? He wasn't even like super involved in his own press conference about leaving, and it seemed that there's some questions about the timing and all that. How do you feel about it? Did he disrespect his own career by not making a bigger deal out of him leaving?
No, Mark did fine. I'm not going to go there with that. Mark did fine. I'm not a big defender of him. I don't have to defend him. He's a big boy. Mark's in his 60s. He's got health concerns. He probably doesn't want to tell you what they are. Mark is very private. I'm sure that health has come into play. I'm sure he got with the family and they just said, we want to not have a dad who dies on the sidelines. And it was time, but he was not going to do that, okay? He's not going to tell you everything. So maybe he comes off that way. But I said, you guys got to stop it.
is, man. And then college football will roll on, man. And Michigan State, they're always going to be right there. I mean, they're a formidable football team no matter what. I don't think you can take away what Mark D'Antoni actually did, though, in his career. Holy smokes, man. He took this team to a place that they've never been before, really. You know? You can go way back in the pantheons of football, man, with that Notre Dame. What was it, the 10-10 tie or... You know, with Notre Dame back in the day, that's the greatest Michigan State football game. But man, I think the greatest Michigan State football game was when they won the Rose Bowl, man. Like that, what a like.
Well, I was in Pasadena in 1987. Well, January of '88.
Well, yeah, that one, yeah.
To beat Southern California, beat USC 3 times like a calendar year. Rodney Pete was the quarterback.
Good old Rodney Pete.
You know, was drafted by the Lions out of USC, so that was pretty good too. But
yeah.
You know, when you think about it, I mean, Rose Bowls were few and far between. They've only had 2 since the 60s. And when Duffy, you know, coached Spartans, like you said, the 10-10 ties, a famous game with Notre Dame back in 1966. But Mark did. He took it to a bunch of bowl games that they'd never been before. He did better than Nick Saban. Nick stayed 5 years. Did not perform well. I mean, I think he was only 5 games over 500, and that took that last year when he went 9-2. To get there, and then George, you know, he went off in a terrible way. He ended up terrible, had to sponge a record in there too because they got caught with a recruiting scandal. So I think Mark did great. I think Mark will go down as probably the second greatest coach behind Duffy. You know, ahead of George. You know, I'm sure that's how Biggie Munn will be in that group too. But he's got nothing to say about it. He's got nothing to apologize for. Mark D'Antonio did fine in his 13 years.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, like he now, okay. We have gone on and on and on, and I'm sure that you did not think this would last as long as it has, and I just got to thank you and respect you because like I said, I could talk to you for hours and hours. But I do want to end on this. I want to end on the Lions, man, and I'm not sure if this podcast will get out before or after the draft. I apologize about that in advance.
No.
But
put your podcast, you put it out whenever you need to put it out.
I do want to know what is yours, because everybody knows that the Lions are king. It doesn't matter if the Tigers just won the World Series, if the Wings just won a cup, if the Pistons just won a trophy. It's all about the Lions in this town. And my first question is that really true? Like from the sports media standpoint, going through the glory years that you went through, is this a Lions town, and is it no debate about that?
I always like this argument because my old pal Earl Robinson, who for many years did a radio show in East Lansing on WKR, just passed away about a year ago. He used to say to me, because I would sub for him, so he'd ask me how to go and sub up at East Lansing, up at the Communication Arts Building. And he would say, you know what, I'm on the campus of Michigan State. I talk about the Spartan basketball team, the Spartan football team, the Spartan baseball, the Spartan this, the Spartan that. Nothing beats the freaking Detroit Lions. Even in East Lansing. And I tend to agree. I think if you talk about the state of Michigan, I think the Tigers are king. I really do. I think that there are people up in way up north that
well, those I spent some time at Northern Michigan University, Wildcats, go Wildcats. But those people are Packer fans, a lot of them out there. So I kind of disregard the UP on the Lions aspect with it.
Well, but it's true, but there are a lot of Packer fans, and on the west side of the state, there's even a lot of Chicago Bear fans over in the Rapids.
Yeah, you read about that too.
So the football, but pretty much the Tigers are king in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Because they all fell for Ernie Harwell, and they loved it. That was part of their summer routine, was listening to Ernie on the radio. And I've heard that too much from other people up in various parts of the state. But I would tell you that in the city of Detroit, that you're right, the Wings win 4 Stanley Cups, the Pistons win 3 NBA titles, and you would see nothing like you would see if, I'll just use him right now, Matt Patricia were driving down Woodward holding the Lombardi Trophy.
Oh, Lord. You ain't...
Even
Semir Yuchi, a.k.a. a Northern grad. Like I said, I got a chance to interview him once. Is he not one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet?
I've known time. He's Tom Izzo's best friend. He was his best man his way. I've known Mariucci a ton of time. I loved it when he came to Detroit. We did the show together for the 2.5 years. I did his coaching show. He loves football. He loves baseball. He knows everything. He's one of the great guys that you're going to meet. His mooch.
He is. All right, so, Mark.
What do you want to know? 63 years, one playoff win. I was there for the game. Yay for me.
Yeah, you're at the one win, 92 versus Dallas.
You asked me what's my favorite Lions moment. It was being at the 38-6 win over the Cowboys, the only playoff win since 1957. I got to see it, sandwiched between the two losses to Washington by an 86-10 aggregate score. The Lions had this great year in 1991. They won 13 games, only time in their history they ever won all their home games. Went 8-0 and then actually make it 9-0 because they won the playoff game there. So they've never done that before, and they haven't done it since. Only time won all their home games. They went 4-4 on the road, and they couldn't beat Washington, and that's what kept them in the Super Bowl.
All right, so Mark, what I want to end this podcast on, just in case we get it out before the draft, or just for prediction's sake, and then we can do like a freezing cold take thing if you really mess it up. Who are the Lions going to draft Thursday night? First round, or what are they going to do? Are they going to trade? What are the Lions going to do with their number 3 pick?
I think it's 50-50 right now that Bob Quinn finds a trade partner. I think there is a possibility. I think it's 50-50. If he finds a trade partner, they can drop as far as 7 or 8 or 9. Could be the Chargers. Could be the Dolphins if they really want Tua. I have made it very clear. Excuse me, I've talked too much today. That's the only problem with keeping me on this one is I start to get the toxies.
Yeah.
Made it very clear I want the Lions to draft Jeff Okudah.
You want Jeff Okudah at number 3.
Yeah, I have made it very clear because he's a special kid. And Tom, if you have not read it, you need to read it. He wrote an ode to his mother.
I did read that. Wow, yes, you are right. I read that. That is some inspirational stuff, man. Powerful.
So that is a kid in college. He's actually written 2 things about his mom, but his mom passed.
Yeah.
If you just go Google Jeff Okudah letter to mother, and you'll read it.
And Mark, I want to stop you real quick because earlier we talked about that how athletes themselves have become part of the sports journalism atmosphere. You know, like athletes are now writing stories themselves and giving deep feelings, and they're doing it not on like a national stage or with a mic in their face. They're writing articles that they want the world to read about themselves. And Jeffrey Okudah, he wrote one of the great ones that I've read, man. Wow.
He's just a special kid with a special talent. Get away from the fact that he's 6'1", 210. He can play like crazy. You can draft him, you stick him at the corner spot for a decade and go find another guy and move along. You'll be very happy you did. So I would not be upset at all because I want Okudah. If it was Simmons, if for some reason Washington is stupid enough not to take Chase Young and the Lions, I'd be happy with either Young or Okudah. Now, as far as trading down, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of guys. You can Derek Brown. There's a lot of guys, I guess, but I really think this kid is special. And he's a Buckeye, and I'm not a big Buckeye fan, obviously. But I think when I read that, and I've seen his background, and I've watched him play, he's got every club in the bag, man. And I would want the Lions. Don't screw it up. Just stay right at number 3 and take Jeff Okudah. You'll be happy you did.
All right, Mark. Look, I'm going to leave it at that, man. This has been a great conversation. And again, I got to say, you're one of my favorites, man. This has been an absolute honor for you to come on the Detroit Sports Sit Down with me.
Tom, what about Murphy and the Man?
Murphy and the Man? Well, you're going to have to, it's going to be the Murphys and the Man because this podcast is me, my brother Dan. he runs it with me, and then I got my buddy Joe Perry. Shout out to Dane Murphy. Shout out to Joe Perry. We do the Detroit Sports Sit Down, but we got a spot for you if you ever want to come on, man.
I'm kidding. I got a podcast I don't do now.
Well, tell them about it.
What? No,
Tell the people.
I got a podcast with Nick Monsanto. It's on BW. We have a website, bwamerica.com, but we haven't done it in a while. We put it on hiatus. Wait a second, I was going to say, so it's Joe Perry from Aerosmith?
No, ironically, he does have the same name, but no, he does not play the guitar. But he's really good on the editing. So all my stutters and ums and stuff, he's pretty good at getting those out.
Oh, I was hoping it was Joe Perry of Aerosmith.
Nah, he's got his own thing going on right now. I think that Joe Perry
all
from
right,
Aerosmith.
No, I was kidding. I've got my own guest I don't do right now.
Yeah. I know you got a lot going on, man. I know, and it's fun, man. But like I said, man, Mark, it's an honor. Like I said, I'm 40 years old now, man. I just turned 40. I just turned 40 on February 16th, and then my whole life got shut down about 3 weeks later. So 40 hasn't been so great for me so far, man. Whoever said 40s are the best years of your life, they're freaking lying, man. At least to me. So, but.
Bad for you that you had to hit 40 right now, right?
Oh Lord, but I'm telling you, man, you have been an inspiration to me for a long time, man, and I appreciate you coming on, man, and appreciate you taking the time, man. I know I promised you like 30 to 45 minutes, man, and we're way past that. So.
No, I mean I actually had some time, and I told you, I'll just say it again. You asked some really good questions. Those are really good that I don't get asked a lot. So there's some stuff that in fact you can't see me because we're not doing like a Zoom or a Skype thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like looking at the walls going, this guy's asking some questions.
I love to hear that, man. What that really means is you got to come back on, man. You got to be a regular voice on this, hopefully, especially when sports starts kicking up, man.
I'll tell you, don't make me regular because I'm not a big fan of working, Tom.
Yeah, you're a good fan of that money, though. So if we get rich for doing this thing, man,
Well, that's another story. That's a whole other ballgame. But no, it was a pleasure talking to you, and keep up the good work. It sounds like you're doing just fine with this.
Thanks, Mark. Listen, I'm gonna let you go. Listen, once again, the Detroit Sports Sit Down with Mark Wilson. Thank you so much, man. What a great show, man. Especially in this time where it's hard to even talk about regular sports, man. Like a lot of people aren't even thinking about sports, but what's really happening is people are starting to realize how much they need sports and how much they love sports and how much sports is really such a part of our lives.
We'll get back to it, but we got to take care of our people, so we just tell you and your Murphys and your Joe Perrys and everybody else, just to stay well, stay healthy, and be safe.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Only 2 hours later.